Hello. Today we're going to talk about document-based questions. Document-based questions, or DBQs as they are known, is the new trend in high school social studies instruction. It's a way to test a higher form of thinking or an authentic assessment for documents in history. In document-based questions, students are asked to evaluate historical documents like maps or graphs or political cartoons is what we're going to talk about today. Students are then given a task to perform. You usually have to write an essay or answer a series of short answers based on the information that they gather from the documents. You have to remember that students are not used to document-based questions, so when they're looking at the documents, you need to show them what to look for, and you have to scaffold the activity by building little by little, more and more. And practice of this skill is important because you can't just do it 1 week and then not do it for 3 weeks and then expect them to remember how to do it the 4th week. Try and incorporate it at least once a week into your lesson plans. And as you do it more often, try and add more documents to the ones that they are evaluating. The activity that we're going to do is designed for an 11th grade classroom in U.S. history or a 12th grade classroom in American government. Most of the students that I teach are over 18, and the students are first or second generation Americans, so they're familiar with the immigration processes. Immigration is covered in all 4 years of high school social studies. This lesson is going to talk about immigration in the context of the TEKS for U.S. history and some for American government. But with social studies, you have to remember that the TEKS overlap significantly, so if they sound repetitive, it's because they are. The TEKS are going to address our History 3C. We're going to analyze the social issues affecting immigrants in this case, and we're also going to describe the optimism that many immigrants who sought a better life in America, then that's the History TEK 3D. We're also going to talk about the Geography TEKS for analyzing the cause and effect of changing demographic patterns resulting from legal and illegal immigration. We're going to talk about the pull-push factors. The economic factors explain how foreign policies affected economic issues, and we're especially going to address the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. The TEKS that address the social studies skills are done through all 4 years of high school social studies. We're supposed to teach them the difference between primary and secondary sources and address their validity in answering historical questions. Also, they must use the skills that they learn to interpret different things, maps, graphs, speeches, and in this case, political cartoons. The Social Studies Skills 32 is the one that has the students make appropriate decision making independently and with others. The students are supposed to learn to gather information and consider options, form conclusions, evaluate the information. We're also required to teach them how to make decisions based on the information that they gathered. And this is the type of questions that teachers are concerned with because these are the TEKS that are tested on the new state assessment, the EOC star. Right, so how the DBQs work is you present the student with a document to review. The students, they have to write down what they see in the picture, certain objects, so they have to look for symbols and identify their meaning, words and phrases that are there and to decipher their meaning. And most importantly, you have to look for the publication date to put the document into a historical context. The picture here, it shows a man with Asian characteristics, and he's standing outside the Golden Gates of Liberty, so that alludes to San Francisco. There's a list of people who are welcome, and then there's the ones who aren't welcome. On the bottom, it's in fine print, and you can see it. It says that we have to draw the line somewhere, you know. One of the challenges with document-based questions is that the older ones are of poor quality, so the smaller print is very difficult to make out. This is a different picture also talking about the Chinese Exclusion Act. In the background you see San Francisco, and then the Chinese must go on the bottom, and uh, it's kind of a derogatory little cartoon there because you have the Chinese man, and he's got a washboard in his hand, and he's being chased by the Missouri steam washer, which if you guys don't know what the Missouri steam washer is, it was one of the first washing machines made in the United States, and it has the patent date on there of 1883. So you have to have the students put this into a historical context and what was going on around 1883. When you feel comfortable that the students have gotten the hang of doing one document and talking about what they see in the one document, that's when you have them compare two documents. And the process is similar. You have the student look for objects, symbols, words, and phrases, and the date of publication. And then you have them compare or contrast the message that's being conveyed by each author. In here you have a border patrol agent complaining about the children he's encountering, and at the bottom you get the hint of racism, saying that he doesn't even speak English, but then the border patrol agent acknowledges that he doesn't speak anything at all, but still it's rude that he doesn't speak English. And then in the other cartoon you have two individuals dressed as one's dressed as a hunter, and he has his Texas GOP on the back, and they're both elephants, so that indicates the Republican Party. And they're waving goodbye to what looks like a truckload of kids going back to Mexico. Now, both of these cartoons exhibit the sarcastic tone, but it talks about the current crisis of immigration, the kids from Central America going through Mexico, and then being intercepted at the Texas border. Once you feel that the students are comfortable with comparing the two political cartoons, what we try and do then is try and put the political cartoons into a historical context. How we do this is we have a student select a political cartoon and then find a current news article that discusses what's going on in the cartoon, or vice versa. We have them find an article and then find the political cartoon. The best way to do it is to start with current events and then have them work back. Again, this cartoon here, it's a group of children showing up to a house. The mother in the picture, I guess, alludes to the Statue of Liberty because of the headdress there. And then the political article on the side, it's from the Chicago Tribune, and then Solving the Youth is the title of the article. Once you feel the students are comfortable with putting the cartoon into a historical context with current events, then you want to move on to the historical event. Again, we're back to the cartoon about the Chinese Exclusion Act, and this is actually an advertisement from a newspaper that was, the date on it is July 23rd, 1892, which is after the Chinese Exclusion Act, but it expresses the sentiment of the country around that time. Remember, making sure that the students know when the documents were published is very important. And sometimes the publication dates aren't going to be on the documents, so as a teacher, you do have to give them that hint. Now, we're going to talk about why the DBQs or the political cartoons, why do we need to use them in the classroom? Now, one of the strategies is to help bilingual or ELL classroom students adapt to social studies or a historical way of thinking. Now, the benefit with historical cartoons is that very little text or reading needs to take place. For example, this one cartoon here, it only has the one "feed me" written there next to the crying baby. this example here, it shows two things that you can do. Like there's the blank bubble on the top. It's a way for you to get the students to write in the caption for yourselves. Or you can go into Paint and erase the captions in the cartoons. But this is also beneficial to the ELL learners because there's very little text that they have to read, and it expresses a sentiment that's universal. It doesn't have to do with being from America or not. Nobody is has an answer as to why we have all of these school shootings. This here shows another cartoon where very little is reading is required. There's obvious soldiers there. The one card says Iraq. It's a criticism of the U.S. policy in Iraq. It also can be used to discuss both sides of the argument. Did the United States cause it, or was it already like that when we got there? Um, Political cartoons, they're really good at helping students identify the main idea or a thesis without having to read pages of text. The students are pretty good at picking up on these things once they get used to it. Like I said earlier, students aren't used to gathering information from cartoons, so you have to build up to the activity. And again, these things really help students put the ideas into historical context. Is why is this cartoon being written, and why was it written when it was? Again, this cartoon here, it's the man dressed as a border patrol agent complaining about all of these immigrants who are coming into the United States illegally, and as we can see, it's an infant with diapers, and complaining that he doesn't know how to speak English is a hyperbole used by many people who oppose illegal immigration. Um, the DBQs are very helpful teaching the students to record their observations. What you do is you have them look at the documents and then write down what it is that they're noticing. When they're done, you have them call out to you what it is that they notice, and then the students can debate amongst themselves to see what it is that they can, what they noticed that was similar, what was different, and have them justify why it is that they think that is important. It also allows the students to begin this problem of conflict resolution and critical thinking that are required by the social studies TEKS. The debates, sometimes they get heated, sometimes they get silly, but they are productive. The students start to express the solutions that they think are appropriate to whatever problem is being discussed in the cartoons. Currently, what classroom teachers are trying to do is a DBQ that focuses on less documents. Originally, the DBQs were part of the AP US history test, where students would have to write an essay after they looked at 10 to 12 documents, drew a conclusion, gathered their evidence, and they wrote their essay, proofread it, and all that stuff, and they'd do it all in less than an hour. What we're trying to do now is kind of the same thing, but using less documents. Like I said, start with one and then work your way up. Kentucky, Michigan, and New York, they've all started using a portion of a DBQ on their state assessments, and that usually has between 6 and 8 documents. The problem with having essays on state assessments is that they're more expensive to grade, so we might not see it as a giant revolution, but hopefully we'll get something more on DBQ essay writing in the future. The purpose of these DBQs is to focus on a more authentic assessment of what it is that history is. History can't be reduced to a series of name and dates, is the argument that most historians make. We want to teach the students, yes, that George Washington was the first president and Abraham Lincoln was president during the Civil War, of course, but it's not as important to know that George Washington became president in 1789 and Abraham Lincoln was president from 1860 to 65. We want to know why it is that these figures are important and place them into a historical context. The Library of Congress has started a program called Teaching with Primary Sources. Now, this is a great resources because they have thousands of documents that you can get from them for free and create your own DBQs. Now, the district that I work for spent a lot of money on a program that dealt with document-based questions. I'm not going to name the name, but I thought that it was very, very ineffective. Uh, it would have been very useful if the the documents weren't so complicated. These were designed for an AP classroom, even though they stated that it could be used in any classroom. I didn't find that to be the case, and neither did some of my colleagues. Uh, so we went to a conference, and there they told us about this program, and we found that it's a lot easier to create your own DBQ. One strategy that I would like to pass on is find the documents first and then identify what questions that you want the students to answer. Having the evidence in front of you, it's a lot easier to form the train of thought than having a train of thought and then going to look for the evidence. You'll save yourself a lot of time and a lot of energy if you find the documents first and then work from there. This is a list of the references that I used. I was very impressed with the work that Cynthia Salinas is doing in introducing historical thinking to second language learners. Uh, she works with the elementary and middle school kids, but her strategies are very interesting in getting kids who really don't speak English at the level that they should yet to get them to think in a historical perspective.